My name is Ingrid Mayers. I am 32 years old. Last Mother's Day, my fiance's mother stood on a stage in front of 500 people, pointed at my mom, and said 6 words that ended a family. She said them into a microphone. She said them while smiling. And my fiance, the man I was supposed to marry in October, laughed. I did not yell. I did not throw a glass. I took my mother's hand, stood up, and walked out of that ballroom without looking back. Then I sat in the parking lot and made one phone call. 3 words: do it. Now, what Patricia Carrington did not know, what none of them knew, was that I had spent the last 6 months building a file. And that file had her name on every page. But I need to start at the beginning because the phone call only makes sense if you understand the 6 months before it. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, the channel where dignity always wins. If you have ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting someone you love, this one is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. It started the way these things always start, with a dinner invitation I should have declined. I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Apartment 4C, 3rd floor, no elevator. My mom worked the night shift at Barnum Elementary, not as a teacher. As the school nurse, $38,000 a year, and she stretched it like it was twice that. Dinner was cereal most nights, not because we were starving, because Mom did not get home until 11. And I learned early how to pour milk without spilling. I did homework under the kitchen light while she slept on the couch with her shoes still on. She never complained, not once. When I got the scholarship to UConn, she ironed my one good blouse the night before every campus visit. She drove me in a car that shook above 55 mph and dropped me off at the admissions building like she was delivering me to the front door of a future she had built with her bare hands. I studied accounting, passed all 4 sections of the CPA exam on the first try, got hired at a Big 4 firm in Hartford, spent 6 years auditing nonprofits and government contracts. Then I went independent, forensic accounting, fraud examination, the kind of work where you read spreadsheets the way detectives read crime scenes. By 32, I was making $95,000 a year. Not rich, not struggling, comfortable in a way my mom never was, which was the whole point. I thought the hard part was over. I thought the years of cereal dinners and ironed blouses had bought me a seat at a table where people would see my work and respect it. I was wrong by about $340,000. I met Derek Carrington at a professional mixer in Stamford. He was 34, ran donor relations for the Carrington Family Foundation, and had the kind of easy confidence that comes from never having to prove yourself to anyone. He smiled with his whole face. He asked me questions and actually listened. 3rd date, he told me his family ran a foundation that funded after-school programs across 3 Connecticut counties, budget of $2.8 million a year. His mother was board chair, his father was treasurer. I told him my mother was a retired school nurse from Bridgeport. He said, "That is the most important job in any school." I believed him. 6 months in, he brought me home to meet them. The Carrington house sat on 2 acres in Greenwich. 6 bedrooms, a circular driveway, hydrangeas trimmed like they had a personal stylist. Patricia opened the door in cashmere. Howard stood behind her in a blazer with monogrammed cuffs. Dinner was salmon, fine china, real silver. Patricia asked about my family. I told her my father left when I was 4. She paused, set down her wine glass, and let the silence stretch until it became a comment. Howard asked what my mother did for a living. I said she was a retired school nurse. He nodded once and changed the subject to wine regions. Then Patricia laughed. It was high-pitched and practiced. The kind of laugh that does not come from amusement, but from a decision to perform it. How charming, she said. That laugh, I would hear it again in front of 500 people. Over 14 months, Patricia built a pattern so consistent you could set a calendar by it. The bridal shower was first. Ingrid's mother was not on the guest list. When I asked, Patricia tilted her head and said, "Oh, I assumed she would not be comfortable with our crowd." She said it the way you might explain why a child was not invited to an adult party, gently with pity stitched into every syllable. Christmas was next. Patricia handed me a gift bag with a $400 wool coat from Nordstrom. She handed my mom a $1.15 candle from the drugstore in front of everyone. Ellen said, "Thank you." Patricia said, "I thought something simple would suit her." Then the seating chart. I overheard Patricia on the phone with Derek 3 weeks before the gala. Her voice was low, but the kitchen carried sound. "She is lovely, but that mother Derek promised me the seating chart keeps her away from the Wentworths. I will not have her embarrassing us." I stood in the hallway with a glass of water and listened to my fiancé say nothing. Aunt Vivian started texting me links, articles about how to navigate established families, and what to expect when you marry into wealth. She signed every message with a smiley face as if condescension came with an emoji discount. I told Derek about all of it, the guest list, the candle, the seating chart, the texts. He rubbed the back of his neck the way he always did when he wanted a conversation to end. "That is just how she is." He said she means well. 5 words. That was his entire defense of my mother. My mom Camito visit on a Tuesday. She sat at my kitchen table and flipped through the bridal magazines I had stacked by the toaster. She did not ask about the seating chart. She did not mention the candle. She just turned the pages slowly, stopping at a photo of a bride and her mother walking down an aisle together. "You happy, baby?" I looked at her, 58 years old, hands rough from decades of bandaging, scraped knees and checking fevers, hair graying at the temples, eyes steady. "I am," I said. She paused, set the magazine down. "Then I am happy." She knew. My mom was not stupid. She had survived 22 years of night shifts, a husband who disappeared, and a system that paid her less than a starting barista at the coffee shop down the street. She could read a room faster than I could read a balance sheet. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small box. Inside was a brooch, a cluster of tiny pearls on a gold-colored pin. She turned it in the light. "For the gala," she said, "I want to look nice for your night." $12 Goodwill clearance bin. I knew because I had seen the price sticker she forgot to peel off the bottom. My throat closed. I almost cried. I did not. "It is beautiful, Mom." She pinned it on her blouse and smiled. Then she said something I did not fully understand until much later. "You do not owe them your peace, baby." My mom had survived everything life threw at her. She should not have to survive Patricia Carrington, too. The Carrington Family Foundation had been around for 19 years. It funded after-school tutoring, summer reading programs, and weekend enrichment camps in 3 Connecticut counties. $2.8 million in annual donations. A gala every spring. A newsletter with Patricia's photo on the front, smiling next to children who depended on the money she raised. On paper, it looked like everything a community foundation should be. Derek asked me to help in February, 4 months before the gala. The annual audit was coming and their regular accountant had retired. "Just a quick look," he said. "You are the best at this pro bono as a favor to the family." I agreed. I wanted to help. I wanted Patricia to see me as useful, competent someone who belonged at that table. I know how that sounds now. The foundation's office was downtown Stamford, 2nd floor above a real estate agency. Derek gave me a key and pointed me to the filing cabinet in the corner. Manila folders, each one tabbed in red along the top edge. I opened the first folder. Vendor invoices, payment authorizations, bank routing confirmations, standard nonprofit paperwork. The first invoice looked fine, the second looked fine, the third looked fine, the fourth did not. It was built from a company called Hartfield Consulting. $113,000 for strategic advisory services. I turned the page. Same company, same amount. The year before and the year before that, 3 years, 3 identical invoices, $339,000 to a single vendor I had never heard of. I pulled the folder from the cabinet, set it on the desk, and stared at the red tab pointing up like a small flag. I searched for Hartfield Consulting that night. No website, no LinkedIn presence, no Better Business Bureau listing, no state LLC filing in Connecticut, New York, or Massachusetts. I widened the search. Delaware, the state where shell companies go to hide. There it was. Hartfield Consulting, LLC. Registered 14 months after the Carrington Foundation's first fiscal year. Registered agent, a mailbox service in Wilmington. No employees, no office, no phone number. I pulled the bank routing numbers from the payment authorizations and cross-referenced them against the foundation's disbursement records. Every payment to Hartfield went to a single account at a regional bank in Fairfield County. The account was under the name Pelsanto. Delanto was Patricia's maiden name. 3 years, $340,000 in payments from a children's charity to a shell company owned by the woman who chaired its board. In my line of work, there is a word for this embezzlement. I did not panic. I did not call anyone. I made copies of every invoice, every routing slip, every authorization form. I photographed the folder. I built a file, digital and paper, with a table of contents and a timeline. This is what forensic accountants do. We build files. We let numbers tell stories that people cannot lie their way out of. When I finished, it was 2 a.m. I sat at my desk with the folder closed in front of me and thought about what came next. I had 2 choices. Tell Derek and let him handle it privately, or go straight to the authorities. I chose Derek first. That was my mistake. I showed Derek the file on a Saturday morning. His coffee went cold on the counter while he turned pages. His face changed 3 times. Confusion first, then recognition, then something I had never seen on him before. Fear. There has to be an explanation, he said. There is, I said. It is called fraud. He closed the folder, rubbed the back of his neck, stood up and walked to the window and stood there for a long time looking at nothing. Let me talk to them, he said. Give me 3 months before the annual audit. We will fix it internally, quietly. No one has to know. I should have said no, I know that now. But I loved him. And love makes you give extensions to people who do not deserve them. 3 months. I said, if nothing changes, I go to the board. He agreed, shook his head like he was waking up from something, kissed my forehead and left for his parents' house. I watched his car pull out and counted the reasons I should have called the state attorney general. Right then, after that, things shifted. Derek started keeping distance. He canceled 2 dinner dates in a row. He stopped mentioning his parents. When I asked about the foundation, he changed the subject. One night he came over for takeout and saw the manila folder sitting on my kitchen table. Red tabs up. What is that? He asked. Work, I said. He stared at it for 3 seconds too long, then opened his noodles. 3 months, 90 days. That is what I gave him. 90 days of hoping the man I loved would choose the truth over the family that raised him. Month 1, Derek told me he had talked to his parents. I asked what they said. He said they were looking into it. I asked for specifics. He said he did not have any yet. I let it go. Month 2. I checked the foundation's disbursement records again. Hartfield Consulting had another $28,000 authorized, paid, and cleared. Whatever Derek told his parents, it had not slowed Patricia down by a single dollar. I showed him the new invoice. He went quiet. I told my dad. He finally said it was a bookkeeping error. A bookkeeping error does not create a shell company. Derek, he had nothing for that. He picked up his keys and said he needed air. Month 3. The annual audit was 6 weeks away. The Mother's Day Gala was 2 weeks after that. I sat Derek down at my kitchen table. Same table, same folder, same red tabs, and laid it out. You did not tell them, or you told them and they ignored you. Either way, $340,000 is still missing from a charity that serves children, and I am the only person in this equation with a professional license to lose. He stared at the folder. I will handle it. You had 90 days to handle it. That night, I called my colleague at the firm. His name was Webb, a forensic audit partner who had worked the state's nonprofit fraud unit before going private. I told him to finalize the report and hold it. I need one more thing, I said. A public event, something on the record. The Mother's Day Gala was in 18 days. I was not waiting anymore. I was positioning. Patricia announced the gala's agenda in the Foundation's April newsletter. This year's theme was the mothers who shaped us. A tribute segment, a slideshow, a speech from the board chair, Patricia herself honoring the mothers of the Carrington community. 500 guests were confirmed: local politicians, school board members, foundation donors, 2 reporters from the Hartford Courant, and the entire social circle that revolved around Patricia like planets around a very expensive sun. She called me on a Wednesday, 11 days before the event. Her voice was smooth and measured the way it always was when she was about to say something condescending. "Your mother is welcome to attend, of course. Just make sure she is comfortable." Large events can be overwhelming for people who are not used to them. "She will be at my table," I said. Pause, of course. "Aunt Vivian texted me that same afternoon. Heard your mom is coming to the gala, so brave of her. Smiley face, heart emoji." I set my phone on the counter and stared at it for a full minute. Then I picked it up and almost called Webb. My thumb hovered over his name. Not yet. The audit file was in my car. A copy was in Webb's office safe. A third copy was on an encrypted drive in my desk drawer. I had been building this for 6 months. 12 more days would not change the math. But standing in my kitchen with Vivian's text glowing on my screen, I made a decision. If Patricia wanted to put 500 people in a room and hand herself a microphone, she was welcome to it. The gala was in 9 days. The file was ready. The night before the gala, my mom tried on her dress in my bathroom. J.C. Penney clearance rack, navy blue, simple cut. It fit her well, better than she expected. She smoothed the fabric over her hips and turned in the mirror. "Not bad for 58, she said. She pinned the pearl brooch above her heart. $12 plastic pearls on a gold tone pin. Under the bathroom light, they caught just enough glow to pass for something real. "You look beautiful, Mom." She waved me off. "I look clean. That is good enough." We sat on the couch. After that, Chef owned a cooking show, something about bread. I watched her watch it, and I thought about everything I was carrying that she did not know about. The manila folder, the shell company, the 3 months of silence from a man who promised he would handle it. "You nervous?" she asked. "No, Mom, I am ready." She glanced at me, held my eyes for a second, then she turned back to the screen. "Good. We did not talk about Patricia. We did not talk about seating charts or candle gifts, or the word trash that had not yet been spoken into a microphone. We just sat there side by side watching a woman on television knead dough like she had all the time in the world. My mom fell asleep at 9:30. I covered her with the throw blanket and turned off the TV, stood in the dark living room and listened to her breathe. That was the last normal night. After tomorrow, nothing between us and the Carringtons would ever be normal again. The Waverly Club sat on 4 acres of manicured lawn in the hills above Greenwich. Valet parking, stone columns, a ballroom that could hold 600 but was set for 500 tonight. Round tables draped in white orchid centerpieces, a stage with a podium and a projection screen. My mom and I arrived at 6:15. She had the brooch pinned above her heart. I wore a charcoal dress and flats. We were assigned table 14 near the back between the emergency exit and the wait station. The Wentworths were at table 2. Patricia took the stage at 7:45. She wore ivory. Her hair was set in the kind of style that requires 2 hours and Somione Elsa's hands. She stood at the podium with the calm authority of a woman who had been running this show for 19 years. "Tonight," she said, "we honor the mothers who shaped us." The slideshow began. Black and white photographs of Carrington matriarchs, Howard's mother in pearls at a garden party, Patricia's mother, or the version of her mother she chose to display, holding a bouquet at a country club entrance. Each photo accompanied by a warm caption, "Applause after every slide." Then Patricia paused. She looked out at the room. Her eyes found table 14. "Of course," she said, "not everyone here tonight came from the same tradition." A ripple of nervous laughter from Vivian's table. Derek, sitting at table 3, smiled. Patricia lifted her chin. She looked at my mother, at the navy dress, at the plastic brooch, at the woman who had bandaged a 000 children's knees for $38,000 a year. And she said it. "That is not a mother, that is trash." The room cracked open. Half of the guests gasped, the other half froze. Vivian clapped twice before catching herself. The sound echoed off the chandelier. Derek laughed. Full, audible, unmistakable, Patricia's laugh followed. High-pitched, practiced, rehearsed over decades of performing superiority in rooms full of people too polite to object. 500 people heard it. My mother did not crumble. She did not cry. She folded her napkin, set it on the table, and looked at me. Her hands were shaking. The pearl brooch caught the overhead light, and for 1 second it looked real. She did not say a word. She did not have to. I did not stand up fast. I took a breath, counted to 3, folded my own napkin, and placed it beside my plate. Then I reached across the table and took my mother's hand. We stood together. I did not look at Patricia. I did not look at Derek. I did not scan the room for sympathy or outrage or whatever 500 faces were doing in that moment. I looked at the exit. We walked slow, steady. My heels clicked against the marble floor, and the only other sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the absence of every voice in that ballroom. No one stopped us. No one said a word. The parking lot was dark and cool. May in Connecticut, the kind of night where the air smells like cut grass and diesel from the valet stand. My mom stood next to the car and looked at me. "I am sorry, baby." "Do not," I said. "Do not you dare apologize." She pressed her lips together, nodded. I pulled my phone from my clutch, opened contacts, scrolled to W picked up on the second ring. He was still at the office. The man worked later than anyone I had ever met. "File the report with the AG tonight." "Pause, you sure?" "Do it now." "Understood." I put the phone back in my clutch, helped my mom into the car, drove out of the Waverly Club parking lot with the headlights cutting through the dark and neither of us saying a word. The radio played soft jazz from a station neither of us had chosen. By morning, the Connecticut Attorney General's office had the Carrington Foundation file on a desk in Hartford. I sat in my mom's kitchen at midnight, still in my dress, still smelling like orchid centerpieces and regret that was not mine to carry. She brought me tea. Neither of us said anything for a long time. If you have ever had to protect someone you love from people who were supposed to become your family, if you have ever made the hardest right choice of your life, drop a comment. Tell me. I want to hear it. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 7:14. Derek had added me to a family group chat by accident. He meant to remove me. I opened it and read backward through the night. Patricia posted at 11:42. Well, that was dramatic. Vivan 11:51. I cannot believe she just left like that. So embarrassing. Howard 12:03 a.m. Let her cool down. She will come back. They always do. Derek 12:15. She is overreacting. Mom barely said anything. I read that line 3 times. Mom barely said anything. She called my mother trash in front of 500 people into a microphone on a stage, and his summary was barely said anything. I screenshotted every message. Calm, methodical, the way I would document any audit trail. Then I scrolled further. There was one more message sent earlier than the others from Patricia to Derek only, forwarded into the group chat by mistake. Timestamp 6:18 p.m. before the gala even started. Make sure the nurse does not sit near the Hendersons. I will not have her embarrass us again. The nurse, not Ellen, not your future mother-in-law, not even Ingrid's mom, the nurse. I stared at that word on my screen until the letters stopped looking like letters. Patricia had not just insulted my mother on impulse after too much wine. She had planned it. The seating, the tribute segment, the timing. The word trash was not a slip. It was a conclusion she had reached long before she stepped on that stage. The group chat stayed open on my phone for 3 days. I never replied. I never needed to. I had something better than a reply. I had their own words. Derek showed up at my apartment the next afternoon. He did not call first. He knocked twice and stood in the hallway with his hands in his pockets and the face of a man who had practiced a speech on the drive over. "We need to talk." I let him in. Did not offer coffee. Did not sit down. "My mom is devastated," he said. "She has not stopped crying since the gala." I let that sit in the air for a moment. Your mom called mine trash in front of 500 people. Derek, she did not mean it like that. You know how she gets after wine. She said it into a microphone. There is no did not mean it. He shifted weight from one foot to the other. Then his tone changed harder. "What did you do?" "Webb called Dad's office this morning. Something about an audit." I did what I should have done 3 months ago. You went to the authorities without telling me. I told you 6 months ago. You told me to wait. I waited. You told me it was being handled. It was not. Derrick's eyes moved to the kitchen table. The manila folder sat there, red tabs up. He stared at it the way you stare at something you hoped would disappear if you ignored it long enough. You are going to destroy my family, he said. Your family destroyed mine first. He stood there for 10 seconds. I counted. Then he turned, walked to the door, and left without closing it. I closed it for him. Then I locked it. The deadbolt clicked, and the apartment was quiet again. Vivian worked fast. 48 hours after the gala, she had called every person in the Carrington orbit with a story that bore no resemblance to what actually happened. The version Vivian told Ingrid Mayers, a woman from Bridgeport with no family money and an accounting degree she had used to worm her way into the Carrington circle, was now attempting to extort the family. She had fabricated financial documents. She was bitter about a wedding that was not happening fast enough. She wanted money. The version Vivian did not tell. $340,000 in phantom vendor payments traced to an account under Patricia's maiden name. My work phone rang on a Wednesday. A client I had worked with for 2 years said she needed to put things on pause. Another client canceled a meeting without rescheduling. A mutual friend from the Stamford Professional Network texted me, "Is it true you are suing them for money?" I did not respond to any of it. I went to work. I ate lunch at my desk. I filed quarterly reports for 3 other clients. I drove to my mom's house after work and sat at her kitchen table while she made chicken and rice. "People are talking," she said. "Let them." She looked at me, set a plate down. "You eating?" "Yes, Mom." She sat across from me, and we ate without talking about Patricia or Vivian or the fact that my professional reputation was being dismantled by a woman whose primary qualification was being married to Howard's brother. Vivian had 72 hours of narrative control. I had 6 years of invoices, 3 copies of a forensic audit file, and the patience of a woman who grew up eating cereal for dinner. Howard called on a Thursday morning. 8:17 a.m. his number showed up as H. Carrington. I had saved it during the engagement as a gesture of courtesy I no longer felt. His voice was calm, measured. The voice of a man who had spent 40 years turning confrontation into negotiation. "Ingrid, I think we can resolve this like adults. I am listening." The bookkeeping issue, it has been corrected. Patricia has repaid the discrepancy from personal funds. The foundation's accounts are whole. When did she repay it? Silence. This week. After the report was filed, Ingrid, Mr. Carrington, the report has already been filed with the Attorney General's office. Longer silence. I could hear him breathing. Filed. With whom exactly? The Charitable Trust Unit. They handle nonprofit fraud investigations in Connecticut. That was unnecessary, his voice dropped. And vindictive. $340,000 from a children's program is not a bookkeeping error, Mr. Carrington. It is theft. You will regret this. Noted. I hung up, set the phone on my desk. My hands were steady. Howard knew the bookkeeping error line he had fed Derrick 3 months ago was not confusion. It was cover. He had signed everyone off those authorization forms. His name was on the bottom of each page right next to the routing number that led to his wife's maiden name account. He was not calling to negotiate. He was calling to find out how much I knew and whether I could be scared into silence. The answer to the first question was everything. The answer to the second was no. My phone did not ring again that day. I packed Derrick's things on a Friday. It took 1 box. A Harvard sweatshirt he had left on my chair. 2 books about wine regions he would never finish. A phone charger. A pair of running shoes with the laces still tied. The small things that accumulate when someone is becoming part of your life and then stops. The ring sat on my nightstand. 2.1 carats platinum setting, a diamond that caught light from every angle. Patricia had picked it out. She told Derrick exactly which jeweler to visit, which cut to choose. Which setting would photograph well at the engagement party she had already planned before Derrick asked the question. I put the ring on top of the box. I drove to Derrick's office, a shared workspace in downtown Stamford with glass walls and too much natural light. He was not at his desk. I left the box with the receptionist. There was a note tucked under the ring. I loved you, but I do not owe anyone my integrity. He called twice that afternoon. I let both go to voicemail. He did not leave a message either time. I drove to my mom's house. She opened the door and looked at my left hand, bare ring finger. No diamond catching the porch light. She did not ask what happened. She did not say, "I told you so." She did not list the red flag she had catalogued for 14 months and never mentioned. She stepped aside and said, "Come in, baby, I made soup. We ate soup. We watched the news." She fell asleep on the couch at 9, and I covered her with the same blanket from the night before the gala. The engagement ended on a Tuesday. The investigation began on a Wednesday. The Connecticut Attorney General's Charitable Trust Unit opened a formal inquiry on a Wednesday morning in late May. I know this because I received a call at 9:06 a.m. from an investigator named Rue who asked if I had time to discuss my filing. I had time. I provided everything. Bank routing numbers, Hartfield Consulting's Delaware LLC registration, 3 years of authorization forms with Howard's signature on every page, the full forensic timeline showing $113,000 per year flowing from a children's charity to an account under Patricia's maiden name. Ruiz listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "My thank you. We have assigned this to our active investigations unit. How long?" "I cannot give you a timeline, but the documentation is thorough. That helps. The numbers spoke. They always do. Numbers do not need a microphone or a stage or 500 witnesses. They just need someone willing to read them." The following week, a small article appeared in the Hartford Courant. Back section, 4 paragraphs. Carrington Foundation under review by State Attorney General. No names, no details. Just enough to let people know that something was moving. I did not celebrate. I went to work. I filed 3 client reports. I ate a sandwich at my desk. I called my mom and asked about her garden. "Tomatoes are coming in," she said early this year. "Save me some." Always. I hung up and stared at the newspaper clipping I had printed and pinned above my desk. 4 paragraphs buried on page 9. That article was 4 paragraphs. By the time this was over, it would be front page. Patricia hired a PR firm within 72 hours of the current article. A polished woman in a gray suit released a statement on behalf of the Carrington Family Foundation. The foundation welcomes transparency and is fully cooperating with all inquiries. Cooperating. Patricia used that word like it was a shield instead of what it actually was. An admission that there was something to cooperate about. Behind the statement, Patricia was working the phones. I found out from the strangest source, my former employer. An HR contact at the Big Four firm where I had spent 6 years called me on a Monday. "Just so you know," she said, "someone named Patricia Carrington contacted us last week asking about your personnel file." We declined. She asked for my personnel file. She said she was conducting a reference check. We told her we do not release employee records to private individuals. She was not happy about it. I thanked the HR contact and hung up. Patricia was trying to find something, a disciplinary note, a poor review, anything she could use to discredit the woman who had found her shell company. She would not find anything. 6 years, clean record, 2 promotions. 3 days later, my mom called. "I got a letter," she said, "from Patricia, handwritten cream stationery. I drove over and read it at the kitchen table. Dear Elaine, I am sorry for any misunderstanding. I was nervous that night. You know how speeches go wrong. I hope we can put this behind us. Family is everything. Warmly, Patricia." I read it twice. Set it down. "Mom," she spelled your name wrong. Ellen looked at the letter. "Elaine," she read. Then she folded it and put it in the recycling bin. 14 months. She never learned my mother's name. 14 months. She had been in my life for 14 months and she did not know my mother's name. She called her the nurse. She called her trash. And when she finally put pen to paper, she wrote, "Dear Elaine, my mother's name is Ellen. If that detail does not tell you everything you need to know about Patricia Carrington, keep listening because it gets worse." Georgia Hale called me on a Tuesday evening. I did not recognize the number. She introduced herself as the event coordinator who had worked the Mother's Day Gala. 6 years running every Carrington event from the spring fundraiser to the holiday auction. I heard about the investigation, she said. I want you to know something. I sat down. Okay, I was backstage when she said it. The venue records all main stage audio for liability. Every speech, every announcement, every toast, it is all on file, including what she said about your mother. I closed my eyes. You have a recording. The venue has a recording. Standard practice. Microphone feed goes directly to a backup drive. I can connect you with the facility manager. Why are you telling me this? Georgia was quiet for a moment. I have worked 6 Carrington events. Last year during the scholarship awards, Patricia humiliated a 17-year-old girl in front of the entire room. Called her a charity case who should be grateful to even be here. The girl cried. Nobody said a thing. Nobody said a thing. Nobody ever does. Patricia writes the checks. People look the other way. Georgia offered to provide the audio file and a written statement to the AG investigator. She would also testify to the pattern. 6 years of events, 6 years of watching Patricia treat people like props in a performance about her own generosity. I should have done this years ago, she said. You are doing it now. I hung up and sat in the dark for a long time. The venue recording was not a secret tape. It was not something I had arranged. It was standard liability procedure. Every event space in Connecticut kept mainstage audio. The truth had been on file the whole time. Nobody had asked for it until now. 2 a.m. the apartment was dark. I could not sleep. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my camera roll. There were photos I had not deleted yet, the ones from before. Derek and me on Cape Cod, sand on our feet, both of us laughing at something I could not remember anymore. A selfie at a restaurant in the North End. A photo he took of me asleep on the couch with a book on my chest. I loved him. That part was true. Not the foundation, not the Greenwich house, not the access to a life I had never imagined. I loved the man who asked me questions and listened, who drove to Bridgeport to have dinner with my mom and ate her meatloaf without complaint, who once fell asleep holding my hand on a Tuesday night like it was the most natural thing in the world. That man was real. He just was not strong enough to exist inside his own family. I stared at the photos for a long time, long enough that the screen went dim and I had to tap it awake again. Did I go too far? Should I have just walked out of the gala and never looked back? Should I have let the $340,000 stay buried under red-tabbed folders and Hartfield Consulting invoices? My mom's voice came to me, not from a phone call or a memory of a specific conversation. Just the shape of the words she had spoken at my kitchen table, holding a $12 brooch like it was made of something precious. You do not owe them your piece, baby. I deleted the photos, closed the app, made coffee. I did not go too far. I went exactly far enough. The Carrington Foundation Board called an emergency session in mid-June. 9 members plus the AG investigator conference room in the Foundation's Stamford office, fluorescent lights, bottled water, legal pads, and the quiet tension of people who were about to learn that the organization they trusted had been robbed from the inside. Investigator Ruiz presented the preliminary findings. 3 years off payments to Hartfield Consulting, LLC, $340,000 total. Vendor has no employees, no office, no evidence of any services rendered. All payments routed to a personal bank account registered under the maiden name of the board chair. The room did not erupt. It contracted. 9 faces rearranging themselves around a fact they could not undo. 2 board members resigned on the spot, stood up, collected their bags, and walked out without saying anything beyond "I had no knowledge of this," which was probably true. That is how embezzlement works. It hides in the spaces between the people who should be watching. Howard tried. He sat at the far end of the table in a navy blazer with those monogrammed cuffs and said, "This is a family foundation. These are internal matters." The board chair, an independent member named Caldwell, a retired judge, looked at Howard over her glasses. "Mr. Carrington, you are the treasurer. These payments were authorized under your signature. Howard's face went gray, not red, not defiant. Gray, the color of a man watching a door close that he cannot reopen. Patricia was not in the room. She had been asked not to attend. The board meeting lasted 3 hours. The vote took 11 minutes, unanimous, 7-0. The two who resigned having already left 7-0. Patricia removed as board chair. Howard removed as treasurer. Both stripped of all foundation access, accounts, email, office keys, donor lists. Effective immediately. The board mandated a full referral to the Attorney General for further action. An external auditor would be brought in to review every transaction for the past 5 years. The foundation's programs, the tutoring, the summer reading, the weekend camps would continue under interim leadership. The children would still be served. That mattered to me more than anything else in that room. After the vote, I was told what happened in the hallway. Georgia Hale described it to me later, her voice flat and precise, the way it gets when someone is recounting something they wish they had not seen. Patricia stood outside the conference room door crying, but the words coming out of her mouth were not, "I am sorry." They were, "How dare they?" Vivan was at her side, gripping her arm. "They cannot do this to you, Pat. You built that foundation." Patricia's chin trembled. "I gave 19 years, and this is how they repay me." Howard stood 10 ft away, silent, staring at the carpet with his hands at his sides like a man at a funeral who forgot whose funeral it was. The manila folder, the original with its red tabs still intact, sat on the conference table inside the room where the vote had just been taken, tabs pointing up like small flags marking the exact location of a collapse. I was not in the hallway. I was not in the conference room. I was at my desk in my office 22 miles away reviewing a quarterly report for a client who paid on time. The file did the work. That is what files do. The Hartford Courant ran it on the front page. Carrington Foundation founders ousted amid embezzlement probe. 12 paragraphs, 2 photographs. One of the Carrington house, one of the foundation's annual report cover with Patricia's face smiling from it. An anonymous board member was quoted. The foundation was funding a family lifestyle, not children's programs. The 500 people who had been in that ballroom on Mother's Day, the politicians, the donors, the school board members, the 2 reporters who had been covering the event for the society column, now knew everything. They knew that the woman who stood on stage and called my mother trash had been stealing from the charity she pretended to run. My phone lit up. Texts from numbers I did not recognize. From people who had been at table 6 or table 11 or standing near the bar when it happened. "I was there that night. I am so sorry I did not say anything. Your mother deserved better. We all should have spoken up. Thank you." Georgia Hale's written statement was referenced in the article. The venue audio recording was confirmed as part of the AG's evidence file. Patricia's words, all 6 of them, were now part of a public record. I read the article at my kitchen table. Same table where I had first shown Derek the folder. Same table where Ellen had eaten soup with me the night I returned the ring. I thought about what Patricia had said on that stage. That is not a mother. That is trash. The auditor's report called what she did fraud. 500 people now knew both things at once. I wondered which words stung her more. Patricia organized a press conference at Carrington House in late June. Her PR firm set up a podium in the formal living room, the same room where I had first eaten salmon off fine china and listened to Patricia say how charming. With a smile that never reached her eyes, 3 local reporters, 2 cameras. Vivian had arranged a vase of white roses on the podium, which struck me as a strange choice for what was essentially a damage control operation. I was not there. I heard about it from Georgia, who heard about it from a reporter friend who recorded the whole thing on her phone. Patricia stood at the podium in a cream blazer. Her hair was done. Her voice was steady. She read from a prepared statement. "This family has given to this community for 30 years. The foundation's programs have served thousands of children and now one disgruntled ex-fiance with a personal agenda." A reporter from the Corinth raised her hand. Mrs. Carrington, the AG's office has confirmed $340,000 in payments to a vendor that does not appear to exist. Can you explain Hartfield Consulting? Patricia blinked. That is a legitimate consulting firm that provided. It was registered to an account in your maiden name, Del Santo. The Delaware LLC has no employees and no record of services rendered. The room went still. Patricia's mouth opened, closed. Her fingers gripped the edge of the podium. She tried to laugh. It was the same high-pitched sound from the gala, from that first dinner in Greenwich, from every moment where she had used performance as a substitute for honesty. But this time it came out broken, a fractured thing that crumbled before it finished. I have nothing further to say at this time, she managed. Viven stepped forward and grabbed Patricia's arm. We are done here. This is a family matter. The reporter kept her camera rolling. The AG does not consider $340,000 a family matter, ma'am. Vivian's face went rigid. She stared Patricia toward the hallway. Howard sat in a chair near the back of the room. He did not stand. He did not speak. He stared at the floor the way he had stared at the carpet outside the board meeting, like a man counting the distance between who he used to be and who he had become. The press conference lasted 11 minutes. The footage aired that evening on 2 local stations. Derrick came to my office the next day. He did not have an appointment. He walked past the reception desk and stood in my doorway with his tie loose and his eyes red. My mother is facing charges, Ingrid. I sat down my pen. Are you here to apologize or to blame me for what your mother did? He opened his mouth, closed it. Both. Edo not know. You laughed, Derrick. He flinched. She called my mother trash in front of 500 people into a microphone and you laughed. I was nervous. Everyone was looking at us. Everyone was looking at my mother and you chose your mother's side. Webb was at the desk behind mine. He had been there the whole time reviewing a client file. He looked up. That was the call, Webb said, his voice flat and factual. 10:47, gala night, 3 words, do it now. I filed the report with the AG at 11:15. Derrick looked at Webb, looked at me. His jaw worked like he was trying to form words that would not come. I loved you, he said. I know. Can we? No, he stood in the doorway for another 5 seconds. I counted them. Then he turned and walked down the hallway. He did not slam the door. He did not shout. He just left. The way people leave when they finally understand that the damage is permanent and the exit is the only honest thing remaining. I picked up my pen, went back to my spreadsheet. Webb did not say anything. He did not need to. We had both seen enough of other people's wreckage to know when a conversation was over. Derrick told me this later, months later, in a voicemail I almost did not listen to. After the press conference, Patricia sat in the dark living room. The podium had been removed. The roses were still on the table, wilting. Howard had moved his things to the guest house that morning. Vivian had stopped answering her phone. Patricia sat in her husband's leather chair and told Derrick something she had never told anyone. When I was 16, she said, your grandmother, your real grandmother, not the one in the portrait, worked at a laundromat on Elm Street in Waterbury. She pressed other people's shirts for $4.50 an hour. I swore I would never go back to that. Derrick waited. Your father's family looked at me the way I looked at Ellen. Like I was something that needed to be tolerated, like I was a project. Then why did you not stop? Derrick asked. Because if I stopped, I would have to admit I was still that girl from the laundromat. And I could not. That was not an apology. It was a confession wrapped in self-pity. Patricia understood the mechanics of what she had done. She had replicated the exact cruelty that was done to her. She could name it. She could trace the lineage. She just could not take responsibility for continuing it. She was still in that dark room, the girl from the laundromat. 61 years old and still running from a woman who pressed shirts. I felt something when Derrick played me that voicemail. Not forgiveness, something smaller, recognition. Maybe the way you understand why a building collapsed without forgiving the engineer who cut corners. Patricia was human. That did not make her less accountable. 2 a.m. the phone lit up on my nightstand. Derrick. I almost did not answer. My thumb hovered over the red button. Then I picked up. His voice was hoarse, worn down to a whisper. I knew, he said. I knew about the money. I was scared. I sat up in bed, pulled the blanket around my shoulders. I know you were. I should have told you the truth 3 months ago. I should have gone to the board myself. I should have. You should have done a lot of things, Derek. Long silence. I could hear him breathing. The sound of someone sitting alone in a room they used to share with certainty. I loved you, Ingrid. I know. What do I do now? I stared at the ceiling. The street light outside threw a pale bar of light across the wall, and I watched it flicker as a car passed below. I cannot answer that for you anymore. He did not argue, he did not beg, he just breathed. Good night, Ingrid. Good night, Derek. I hung up, set the phone face down on the nightstand, lay in the dark, and listened to the refrigerator hum in the kitchen. I did not hate Derek. That would have been easier. Hate has momentum, direction, a target. Hate gets you out of bed in the morning with a purpose. What I felt was quieter than that. Sadder. The kind of grief you carry for someone who had everything they needed to be brave and chose not to be. He was not a villain. He was awkward. And sometimes that is worse because cowards leave you wondering what could have been if they had just stood up once. I did not sleep, but I was at peace. The Connecticut Attorney General's office reached a settlement in September. Patricia repaid the full $340,000 plus an $85,000 civil penalty. No criminal charges, first offense, full cooperation after the board removal, and a willingness to repay that her lawyer negotiated as evidence of good faith. The AG accepted it. I accepted it, too. Prison was never the point. The foundation restructured. New independent board, external auditor, mandatory annual reviews. The after-school programs continued. The summer reading camps reopened. The children who depended on that money kept receiving it, which was the only outcome that mattered to me. Howard and Patricia remained married, which surprised nobody who understood that their relationship was a contract more than a partnership. The Carrington name came off the foundation's letterhead. It was now called the Connecticut Community Youth Foundation. Patricia's photo was removed from the newsletter. Vivian stopped posting on social media. She had not been seen at the country club since June. The gossip network she had weaponized against me went quiet, not because people forgot, but because the story she told turned out to be the opposite of the truth, and nobody wanted to be associated with a lie that made the front page. Derek resigned from the foundation, sold his Stamford condo, and moved to Boston. He took a position at a smaller nonprofit that had nothing to do with his family's name. He did not call. I did not expect him to. My clients came back. The two who had canned during Viven's campaign returned without explanation. 2 board members from the Carrington Foundation referred colleagues to my firm. My reputation, it turned out, was stronger than 72 hours of gossip. October, Sunday morning. The air in Connecticut had turned sharp and clean, the way it does when summer finally lets go. I drove to my mom's house. She was in the garden, kneeling in the dirt with a pair of gloves and a trowel. The tomato plants she had mentioned in June were finished now, just bare stalks and dried leaves. But the mums were blooming purple and gold, lining the walkway like a small parade. She wore the navy dress, the same one from the gala night repurposed for church. The pearl brooch was still pinned above her heart. "Mom, I am sorry you went through that." She looked up from the garden, brushed dirt off her knees, stood. "I have been through worse," she said, "and you were there this time." She went inside to make coffee. I stayed in the garden for a minute looking at the mums, feeling the October air move through the bare spots where the tomatoes used to be. I keep that brooch now. It sits in a small box on my desk next to my CPA certificate and a framed photo of my mom at my college graduation. The one where she is squinting into the sun and holding my diploma like it weighs more than it does. $12. Goodwill clearance bin. Plastic pearls on a gold tone pin. That is what real dignity costs. You do not owe them your peace, baby. She was right. I did not owe them my peace, but I owed her everything. Here is what I learned. The people who call others trash are usually the ones hiding the biggest mess. And the quietest person in the room is not always the weakest. Sometimes she is the one with the file. That is my story. One gala, one phone call. and a mother who deserved better than a plastic brooch and a seat at table 14. If you have ever protected someone who could not protect themselves, share this video, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next.